for this drought situation. We've been trying to do things all along. But again, we're going to be way behind trying to make sure we get farmers back whole as much as we can to go through a winter.
The governor will be attending Wednesday morning's Drought Assessment Committee meeting in Jefferson City. NWS St. Louis meteorologist Chris Kimball tells the Zimmer News Network Columbia has received 27.65 inches of rain so far this year. That's about 5.5 inches below normal. We're expecting to learn details a little bit later this morning about plans by the State Department of Transportation to close a busy bridge over Highway 50 in Jefferson City for about 10 days starting next Monday. MoDOT says the rehabilitation work will extend the life of the Truman Boulevard Overpass Bridge, which is near the Capitol Mall, Jefferson City Honda, as well as the Jefferson City Country Club. MoDOT says its contractor will be replacing expansion joints, repairing concrete, applying a protective coating as well. That Truman Boulevard Bridge over Highway 50 was built in 1984, according to MoDOT. CPD detectives are investigating a shooting. It happened late Saturday night, North Columbia. That is according to our news partner, ABC 17's Gabrielle Tyner, who noticed a very heavy police presence that night at the Super 7 Motel on Rangeline. Now, the manager of the Super 7 Motel was telling Gabrielle he heard honking coming from down the street. Person who was shot arrived at the motel in 911. Was called. Last week's horrific killing of a 3-year-old child in Columbia, other violence prompting the mayor of Columbia, Barbara Buffalo, to propose a new Office of Prevention, of Violence Prevention. Mayor Buffalo outlining her proposal, guest commentary in the Columbia Missourian newspaper. Coming up tonight, the City Council in Columbia is scheduled to vote on a resolution to allocate $25 million in Federal American Rescue Plan Act dollars. Again, keep in mind, folks, that is a resolution that is scheduled to be voted on tonight. In one of Missouri Governor Mike Parsons' most vocal supporters in the Missouri House disappointed the governor's veto of a bill involving $2 million from Missouri National Guard re-enlistment.
John Marsh and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal.
And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
I hope this experience for the speaker has been one of a personal revelation. I'm not being facetious. Anyway.
I've always found that to be a good way to end an argument, and you can ask Hannah. She will back me up on this. Anyway, another good way to end someone you don't know what you're talking about, like the president there. Whatever. Or when you show me pictures of your vacation, I go,
oh, cool. Rude.
Those are some things I do have in common with Joe Biden.
And if you saw the video, it was like a Mitch McConnell moment there right at the end. His face got really scary and kind of blank, and it wasn't just like he was looking around lost. It was like a freeze lost, and it was not good.
It's not good, and they put this guy on a dolly and they wheel him out and get up there and say some words. Joe, please help this guy. Welcome into the show. Weekend hopping. And now, so 45 days. So we're going to have this, we're going to push people to the edge of the cliff and freak out again for 45 days from now. But now the bigger story is Matt Gaetz, all of a sudden his new BFS is CNN. He loves going on to that CNN nowadays, doesn't he?
For sure. And it is going to be a showdown, maybe as early as today.
So Matt Gaetz saying yesterday, I'm going to try to remove House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy, here's his take on that.
So be it. Bring it on. Let's get over with it, and let's start governing. If he's upset because he tried to push us in a shutdown, and I made sure government didn't shut down, then let's have that fight.
It's a soap opera in D.C.
It really is. And my understanding is we're likely to see some procedural maneuvering. So Gaetz can make that motion to vacate, I think, as soon as today. And my understanding is then McCarthy's next move would be to make a motion to table, which, if you don't, that means you just basically lay it on the table. It means and that is like a motion. Usually you make that and it kills something. You can bring something back up off the table. But if he makes a motion to table and wins, then that would be the end of that, at least for now. The scarier part is McCarthy might need some support of Democrats to hold his spot. And in that way, apparently Democrats are already being like, yeah, I'll support you, McCarthy, but here's the list of stuff that I want.
And Gaetz was asked about this while hanging out with his new BFF, CNN, saying, because Jason Smith, congressman who's repping Southeast Missouri, says he doesn't have the support. So Gaetz says, well, aren't you going to need the help of Democrats?
I will make no deal with Democrats and concede no terms to them. I actually think Democrats should vote against Speaker McCarthy for free. I don't think I should have to deal them anything.
You're not going to cut any deals with them?
Absolutely not. And I don't think that any Republicans that share my view on Speaker McCarthy would cut deals with Democrats. But here's the thing. I'm done owning Kevin McCarthy.
Again, it's the hot take stuff, man.
Is Matt Gaetz owning Kevin McCarthy? Is he winning? I don't
think Gaetz has as much support as he thinks. I reached out to Andrew McKay, host a morning show in Matt Gaetz's district in Florida. He hosts a morning show on News Radio 92.3 in Pensacola. I said, do you feel like Gaetz has the support of his constituents for what he's doing? Because I don't think he has the support that he thinks he has. Jason Smith.
It's an absolute waste of time if he brings a motion to vacate. The only way a motion to vacate could be successful is if Matt Gaetz did exactly what he yells at Speaker McCarthy doing, and that's working with the Democrats.
So he's saying if you're going to do this, I know, Matt Gaetz, you're going on to CNN and saying, well, I'm not going to make any deals with the Democrats. Almost factually, you are going to have to.
When Congressman Smith speaks, it's like an adult has entered the room.
Thank goodness.
Honestly.
And he graduated from the same school producer Hannah and Stephanie Bell did. By the way, John Marsh is back tomorrow. Brian Hausworth is here. My name is Branden Rathert. Congressman Mark Alford, he's here 7:35. Want to get the inside scoop from him, what he saw, what he experienced over the weekend. Also, Luetkemeyer here at 8:10. That was not intentional to have two local congressmen on the same show this morning. It's just kind of the way that it worked out. So then I'm wondering, so what are Democrats saying about Gaetz's effort to try to remove House Speaker Kevin McCarthy?
And you're wasting your time on that guy because he has no sway in the House of Representatives, except to get on TV and to raise money on the internet.
Here's the way I look at it. When I was watching Matt Gaetz on CNN, his makeup looked good. And so I went back and started watching clips of him. He spends probably more time on his makeup for TV appearances than he does doing stuff.
I will tell you, I was with Jennifer Bukowski and we met Matt Gaetz in person, and why are you making that face?
Did you thank him for making the show go viral on Twitter?
This was before that, actually. And Jennifer kind of in jest was like, man, you got some really good hair. I'm going to have to get some tips on that hair care routine, but was kind of joking. He spent 10 minutes.
No.
Yes, explaining his hair routine to us. And I was like, I can't.
That's so cringy.
It is very cringy. I will give him points, though. He does win points for not pulling the fire alarm.
My goodness. Jamal Bowman, one of the squad members. And I love this story. As a matter of fact, I even tweeted this weekend.
Wow.
X'd.
At Rathert Branden. By the way,
are people saying that?
No, they're not.
So I asked producer Hannah this morning, I'm like, is anybody calling it X? And the reason I ask is because every news organization, when they refer to a politician's comments on Twitter, they say, he said this on X, formerly known as Twitter. It's still known as Twitter. Nobody's calling it X.
It is. The only hang up for me is my apps and my phone are pure chaos. So the only way I can find anything is I use the search bar at the top of my phone and I search for whatever app I'm looking for. And if I type in Twitter at the top, it doesn't come up. You have to put in X.
And where do we find you on Twitter?
Stephanie S. Bell.
Producer_Hannah.
And I am at Rathert Branden. I had to look. I just do very little on there.
It's literally your name. I don't understand how you keep forgetting.
Well, sometimes I forget the name, too. So Jabal Bowman, and I posted this on Twitter. I said, this is an example of the mindset of a progressive Democrat. That's the level of thinking. Let's go and pull the fire alarm. Remember when we did that in the second grade? Oh, hey, I want to get out of this geology test. I'm going to go and pull the fire alarm. Jamal Bowman's explanation is, well, I thought it would open the door. I was confused. You have 3 kids under the age of 10, 12 years
12,
old?
12, yeah.
Under the age of 12. I'm assuming they all know what a fire alarm does because it's red and it says fire alarm, pull. I'm going to assume, and they go to schools, Southern Boone County School District. I'm guessing they understand what pulling a fire alarm does.
Yeah.
And I loved MSNBC. They get all serious on it because they're saying, well, it was an accident. I didn't mean to do it. And MSNBC, they get breaking news. They get a statement from Jabal Bowman's office.
We got a statement on that saying Congressman Bowman did not realize he would trigger a building alarm as he was rushing to make an urgent vote. The Congressman regrets any confusion, just to clarify some things on that, because I know there was likely some folks kind of scratching their heads wondering what it was they were asking Speaker McCarthy about.
So we want to be sure, it was not intentional. We want to make sure so don't go talking. He pulled it because he didn't want to vote. He was doing anything he could delay. And that's not cool. There's potential felony you do something like that.
Yeah. Have you ever pulled a fire alarm in your life? Yes, he has. I would have guessed that for you. I don't think I've ever touched one.
Yeah.
When I was in probably kindergarten or something, I was messing with the fire extinguisher on the wall and the pin fell out of it. So I had to go to the principal's office and say, hey, this fell.
I'm terrified when I'm on the elevator, of accidentally pressing that, and it starts ringing. I don't know if it calls somebody or not, but I'm trying to stay as far away from that as possible.
Has anybody ever been on an elevator and wanted to do the stop elevator button in the middle of floors? I just want to see what happens.
I got stuck in an elevator one time. So no, I
absolutely not. I want to spend as little time in the elevator as possible.
Not a fun place to be. So how do you feel about all this? 874-9390. And I think basically our take here had been on the show. Listen, this happens almost every year. They push us to the edge. Oh, my God, the government's going to shut down. But here's what I wonder. People that could have potentially have been affected by this, were they paying attention? I'm watching the Mizzou game Saturday, pregame and all that stuff, and we start getting news alerts on the phone saying, oh, it looks like the House has passed this. Now it's going to the Senate. And as we're with all these people and news-making people like that, nobody cared. It was kind of
Yeah, I mean, I care because I feel like they are duping us into, and I think it was Houseworth who was like, they always do it at the last minute. But this year, it really felt like we were headed toward a shutdown. I will say it doesn't go without impact on people, because I know I got several notices from the federal courts on Friday, hey, here's the plan. Here, we are going to be staying open. Here's how the shutdown affects us. And I suspect there are tons of other agencies out there who spent the better part of last week writing out memos explaining, national parks. Okay, here's the plan. Parks are going to be open, bathrooms are not. Here's how we're going to staff or whatever. So we probably still wasted millions of dollars of resources last week planning for a shutdown that, didn't happen. Maybe it happens in 45 days. But I mean, it's still a giant waste of time and resources.
And this is the pause on student loans was ending same day, October the 1st. And Hannah could have been affected, not as it relates to repayments, but she's already got an issue with her stuff. And she was going to maybe have to call customer service or email customer service. And they said, listen, so things like Social Security and benefits, things like that, yeah, you still get them at least in the interim. But the issue would be is if you had some kind of challenge and you need to talk to somebody about something, you wouldn't have anybody to talk to. Congressman Alford, he's here 7:35. We're going to talk about this. By the way, there's now an appointment to take the place of Senator Dianne Feinstein coming up 7:10 this morning. I do want to highlight, there was a time here on the show, it had been several years, I think it was 2019, that we actually applauded Dianne Feinstein. And here's why. She's got some kids that come to her office or whatever, and I'm talking kids 7, 8 years old, and they have a letter and they're freaked out about climate change. And they're there with adults, and these kids are saying, well, you need to do this because 10 years from now, our generation. And I'm serious, like these kids were like freaked out because of the adults in the room scaring the kids. And she said and she was just amazing because she said, well, why don't you go back to whoever sent you here and you tell them this, as it was about the new Green Deal. And we highlighted this at the time, and I think it's worth highlighting again. Her replacement, as Gavin promised, he said, I'm not going to appoint somebody based on skill. It's going to be a black female, and he did just that. He appointed the Emily's List president. Emily's List, they go and they work to push forward Democrat women in elections.
I think so.
Yeah. Her name is LaFonza Butler, and folks, so now he's got some black women. Gavin Newsom does. He's got black women upset. Barbara Lee of California, she's running for Feinstein's seat because she'd said, I'm not going to run for re-election. She says the idea that a black woman should be appointed only as a caretaker to simply check a box is insulting to countless black women. Well, that's what happens when you say, I'm not going to pick. And this woman, LaFonza Butler, maybe she is of Feinstein's ilk. Maybe she is the best person for that job. Those progressive ideas. Still a little shocked that people say that Feinstein was a centrist. So,
but if she ends up running, it's already a crowded primary. Not only do you have Barbara Lee, you've got Adam Schiff, and you've got Katie Porter in that. So it'll be interesting.
Coming up 5 minutes from now, we are going to be doing the daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Well, it was really nerdy last week on the show, and lucky for you.
Nearly 36 cases already scheduled and many more expected to be added to the docket in the months ahead.
So what's some of the big stuff on the docket? Let's do your daily TC rundown with Stephanie Bell. Hold tight, get some pen and paper because I love these I love the dissertations from Stephanie Bell on this stuff.
We're going to keep it pretty high level today, but the court is back in session today. They are arguing about the word "and" today. That's this case. That's the only case that's going to come before the court today, and that's the one that deals with prison terms for low-level drug dealers. But the whole case centers around what the word, whether it should be "and" or, and what the legislature meant when drafting that bill. So that's a really nerdy, exciting one for today. But there's a whole host of other things on the docket that you should be watching. There's some social media stuff. It's really similar, actually. It reminds me of the case a long time ago about when Sheree Reich blocked somebody. So there's some blocking cases, or at least one. There's also a lot about the scope of the federal government. So there's a big case involving the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB is how you'll hear it referred to, and their scope. And so I've got my eye on that one. There's also a gun case that will be argued in November, and potentially there's some abortion cases that are kind of bubbling up that might end up on the docket. And so a lot of really, really important issues, especially off of a really huge and big term last year.
I think fish is another thing they're talking about. Herring, fishermen, guns and fishes, SCOTUS. They're going to start hearing that stuff this week.
They will not be the only ones in session today. Trump will be in court today in New York, I believe. He is making a rare and voluntary trip to court. He said on Truth Social, "I'm going to court tomorrow morning to fight for my name and reputation. This is not over any of the federal indictments, really. It's about the civil case of his business dealings." They've said that he committed fraud, and now some of his businesses are in jeopardy, I would say. And so he is showing up today. I don't think he's expected to testify today. He is on the list as well as some of his kids, but this is going to be like a weeks-long thing. But he says he's coming to court, so that's rare for him.
He doesn't show up very often. Will be interesting to see what happens today. The media circus there.
Also, people are drawing similarities between McCarthy and Boehner. If you recall, there was a motion made years ago against Speaker Boehner. He did not. The motion was unsuccessful, but he ended up stepping down. And McCarthy is standing strong, saying, "Nope, if somebody wants to remove me just because I'm going to be the adult in the room, they can go right ahead." But we do expect, Gates has said on all of the news stations, all of the TV stations, he said, "I'm going to file that motion to vacate." Now, the rules changed when they were having the battle over McCarthy, that now just one person can bring this motion to vacate. We expect McCarthy or someone else to basically make a motion to table to put this aside, but we'll see where the votes are. There was a lot of activity this weekend, apparently, people kind of counting where they're going to be. The question is, will Gates says he's not going to work with the Democrats. McCarthy could work with the Democrats to get the votes he needs. The Democrats might want something in return.
And as I recall, that was one of the concessions that McCarthy made. Say, okay, so a table to vacate, we can do it with just one motion. Will you vote for me now? And the 15th time, they said, okay.
Also, as a part of this fight, Biden is having to reassure Ukraine that the money will keep flowing. But is he right about that?
Hard telling. Coming up a few minutes from now, Mr. Kennedy
Jersey kid back in his home state for 6.
Chiefs beat the Jets. Taylor Swift's Kansas City Chiefs beat the Jets last night, just barely. I did thoroughly enjoy the opening comments on NBC last night, and I get it. Listen, I'm with you, Taylor Swift and all this stuff, but it is mattering, and it is in the zeitgeist right now, and it is introducing a whole new plethora of younger fans.
And women.
And women to Chiefs football, and I think there's got to be some benefits to that, but everybody... There was a lot of people at this game, and I wanted to say, because they were talking about all the celebrities that were there, and there were a lot of them there.
Blake Lively, love her. I'm like an OG Gossip Girl fan, and so yeah, her and Ryan Reynolds, they're so cute. They were both there.
Hugh Jackman was there, and here's the one that impressed me the most. Jake, the State Farm guy. Now he was there? Yeah, he was there. He was in the audience. They panned to him, and the whole time I wanted to say, hey, Chris Collinsworth. There's a football game going on, too, defending Super Bowl champions and the team from America's largest media market, New York. But it was fun. See the Chiefs win barely.
I like to watch other people struggle about what the official couple name should be because I am strongly in the camp of it should not be trailer. Because they're trying to smash and I think this is where Missouri is at. I was thinking about it, and I'm like, we have the Swifties. And Chiefs, we just call, there's no word like Swifties for Chiefs, but we call it Chiefs Kingdom. So I think we're all in Swiftdom. We're just in Taylor Swift's serfdom, basically, now. We're just all stuck there.
The opening broadcast last night, so they're bringing the audience in, and they start talking about now, if you're new, and I thought this was an interesting move by NBC, acknowledging, hey, we've got a huge new audience tonight. Remember last week's game between the Chiefs and the Bears at Arrowhead when Taylor Swift was back here in Missouri. It was the number 1 rated show on television last week. But what was even more interesting about the ratings was the game didn't start out that way. But as word and social media, Twitter and Facebook and all that started catching wind, hey, Taylor Swift... All these young 13-year-old girls all across America started tuning into oh my gosh, Taylor Swift's on the TV. There she is. And who's this Travis Kelce dude? And what's a Chief? And what's all this stuff?
Yeah, were they pulling a Kamala Harris and being like, this is a quarterback? I hope so. Well, and Taylor brought, what's this gal's name? Sabrina Carpenter with her. And she had just a shirt that said Sports Watcher on it. And everyone's like, where'd you get that shirt from? But I think a lot of Taylor fans are probably in that category. But there are some people, it is fun for those people, and I know several of these people who are diehard Chiefs fans and Swifties, and they are just having the time of their life.
Did anybody happen to see the breaking news reports from over the weekend that Brittany Mahomes and Taylor Swift had dinner together?
I did see that, and I kind of laughed because last week wasn't Brittany getting some flack. All of a sudden, she's not the most important, significant other in the stands now. Now it's Taylor Swift.
Yeah, people were trying to create this narrative that Brittany Mahomes and Taylor Swift weren't going to get along because, people don't like Brittany Mahomes, apparently, and they think that she feels she needs to be the center of attention. And so maybe they were just, trying to squash any feud rumors.
Scott Fawn, Missouri, from Missouri Times, going to be joining us at 7:10. We're going to talk some Missouri politics. Of course, over the weekend, we saw what did not happen with the shutdown, as per usual, push Americans close to the edge of the cliff. And then last minute, we got this. But now the bigger story, Matt Gaetz, he wants McCarthy out. Republicans want Matt Gaetz out. And what the platform they're going to stand on as it relates to Gaetz is there's still a House investigation regarding his alleged sexual dealings with underage girls. Now, the Department of Justice earlier this year said, we have not found enough to charge Mr. Gaetz, but that would be different than a House hearing. And then also Willard, Missouri. They want to oust the mayor. And this, we talked about this several years ago, slippery slope when it comes to impeachment. You don't like somebody, let's kick them out. Let's impeach them. Let's get rid of them. Let's recall them.
Yeah, and, we probably shouldn't laugh, but it's just so ridiculous that Willard, Missouri, I believe it was a town of, 6,000 people?
Like that, yeah.
And they're trying to impeach their mayor because the city council hired a city administrator while this guy was on vacation. And when the guy came back into town, he fired the city administrator that the city council had hired. And so the council didn't like that, and they're trying to impeach the mayor.
So, and I liken it to this. It's like in politics is different than a normal workplace. But if in our workplace, if every time like Steph and Hannah got mad at me and tried to boot me out, or anybody at your workplace, well, I don't like them. I don't like what you did. I'm going to impeach you. I'm going to kick you out. I'm going to rescind your position every time because somebody did something that you don't like. It'd be silly.
It would be silly, but at the same time, if every time you went out of town for a day, Hannah and I like pulled some, added a show member or like changed something really drastically, I mean, you can just tell the folks there don't get along, right? But like if every time, I mean, we saw this happen in Kansas City a couple of years ago. The mayor somebody was out of town.
The police chief or somebody.
And they tried to reduce the police funding. I mean, it's kind of a strategy that locals tend to use, but like, typically in a regular workplace, when someone goes out of town, and you think about in a small town, like thinking about Ashland, like the person that the mayor has to deal with the most is the city administrator. Like those two have to be really close. So to think that you would hire someone when the mayor's out of town is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Maybe some problems a lot of problems for Democrats, especially as it pertains to the presidential race. We're going to get into that. There's Stephanie Bell. What was the highlight of your weekend, Steph?
Oh, gosh. I saw okay, can I do the opposite?
Sure.
I saw the Barbie movie on Friday, and that is 3 hours of my life I will never get back. If you have not seen it, it was terrible.
So last weekend, started to watch the first 10 minutes of it, and it was me and my friend, my
say the word.
Your situationship.
My girlfriend.
Whoa, yay! He said it.
And his face is all red. Like
oh, yeah, it matches his shirt.
And her 14-year-old daughter had been wanting to watch us. And we sit down and watch it. And me and Mom are kind of like, man. And I'm trying to, no preconceived notions. And I'm a 52-year-old dude, and I have no interest in Barbie. But like after 5 minutes, I'm like, this is pretty mind-numbing. About 10 minutes in, the 14-year-old says, can we watch something else? It was that.
And you were probably like, oh, thank goodness.
Woo! I felt like Nikki Haley. Like, the longer this stuff keeps going, I feel stupider.
From the debate last week.
Every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber.
That's how I felt sitting through that movie. It was not great. But I got to, it's sports season, so I will say something positive. I got to watch my daughter play soccer, and I'm thankful for the parents who do such a good job with Southern Boone football. They actually live streamed the game. Drew's game was up in Hannibal, so I was able to kind of tune in and watch. So that was really nice. But as you know, I have a big trial this week, so I spent a lot of my weekend working.
The phrase we use here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Stephanie has an aggressive schedule.
Yes.
An aggressive schedule. Producer Hannah is here. What was the highlight of your weekend?
I got to go to a wedding for some family members.
How was that for you? Because you're about a month and a half away. Big wedding with producer Hannah. Black Friday game, Mizzou in Arkansas, 50-yard line. Last I heard, anyway. I don't know if that's true or not. That's the last I recall talking about it. How is that to go to a wedding when you're this close to your own wedding?
Well, it's funny. So this is the second wedding we've been to, since we've been engaged. And we have turned into, the biggest wedding critics. We're like, we liked this. We didn't like that. It's like when we get in the car, it's like a debriefing of, okay, here was the pros, here were the cons. We're so judgmental now. We really are. Just trying to see what ideas we want to steal versus the ones that we could do without.
One of the highlights of my weekend was seeing Robert F. Kennedy might make a third-party presidential bid because he has no chance in winning a primary against Joe Biden. That could be impactful. Yeah.
So he thinks that the third-party choice is a good option?
So he could go to the general. If he runs Democrat, he can't run because he'll lose to Joe Biden in the primary. So if he goes third-party, then there's a better chance he could siphon votes from Joe Biden. And then Dean Phillips, he is a lawmaker from Minnesota, Democrat representative more than once. He has called for Biden to be primaried. He's stepped down from a leadership position. He was asked why. Well, our president. And it's probably things like this. When the president, and again, this is not criticizing his cognitive abilities right now. He has lost it. You can watch, Stephanie commented on this earlier, you can see video of him today and then look at video from even 2 years ago, 3 years ago when he was campaigning. The guy, he's not well. So please understand we're not making fun of him because he's old and decrepit. We're just pointing out facts and how it affects you. as Americans. But when you say things like this,
That democracy, literally our democracy, is at stake.
so he's saying that as it relates to Trump. We can't have Trump as president because our democracy is at stake. Now, some context here, and I hope you will share this with your Democrat progressive friends. Our democracy is at stake. Isn't one of the most important things we think about our democracy, isn't it freedom of speech? I mean, in that list, in the Bill of Rights, there's 10 things in that Bill of Rights. Isn't number one on the list freedom of speech? Isn't Joe Biden and the White House, as judges found on the 4th of July, that Joe Biden and his administration was violating the government cannot impede your freedom of speech? Joe Biden was doing that. So when Joe Biden says democracy is at stake, he's just flat out, he's just lying to you. And that's discerning. And a lot of people just don't get it. That's democracy. Democracy is at stake when you have government trying to tell you what you can and can't say. Coming up just a few minutes from now, here on the show, saying goodbye to man.
The Nasdaq up 18, S&P 500 down 12.
Coming up, we'll look at your futures at 8:25 in the Morning Bell Business News with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you. And it's pretty cool. I always, even as a 52-year-old dude, I'd get like, oh, business news, that sounds, I don't listen to Stuart Varney drone on about stuff. Well, Stephanie Bell is no Stuart Varney. We'll do that for you coming up 8:25 here on the show. Some other things happening. Congressman Mark Alford is going to be joining us to talk about what happened in D.C. over the weekend. What are the chances that McCarthy gets ousted as Speaker? What are the chances now in the soap opera that Matt Gaetz gets ousted? Because over the weekend, 45-day, we've approved the budget for 45 days. So we can still operate for another 45 days. Now, Matt Gaetz, he's on CNN saying, we got to kick McCarthy out of his leadership position. And then there's Republicans in the House saying, well, we need to get rid of Matt Gaetz. So be interesting to see what Mark Alford has to say on that. And then Scott Fahm, Missouri Times, he's going to be joining us. We'll talk some Missouri politics and its impact on you. And he does have an interesting, and I'll go back to Taylor Swift here real quick, but he's got a 14-year-old daughter. And I'm wondering what her take is as a 14-year-old young lady, and being a Chiefs fan and being a Taylor Swift fan, because, you know, Taylor Swift's Kansas City Chiefs won last night, beating the Jets. Chiefs now 3-1 on the season. And Mizzou, how about Mizzou? They pick up another win, big sold-out game coming up this Saturday. We are doing our Tiger tailgate. You can go to our websites, 939theeagle.com and KWOS.com. Get details on where you can pick up passes for one of the biggest tailgate parties there is in all of mid-Missouri. You go to the websites and a whole bunch of different locations where you can go and pick up your free passes. And we do this in conjunction with Buffalo Wild Wings. We give you free Bud Light. High Noon helps us out. Hy-Vee, Echo Water Systems, Twain Barbecue and Tap Room. So you can go to places like in Jefferson City. You can go to Vaughn Pools and Spas. In Mexico, you can go to Graff & Sons. And in Columbia, you can go to Phyllis Nichols State Farm Insurance, and you can get your free passes. You just go. And I think like starting typically, Hannah, Wednesday, like about noon, we start putting the passes out. Hannah leaves the show, and she runs to all these businesses from Mexico to Boonville to Jeff City.
Just do a big old mid-Missouri tour.
She goes to Lynn. She goes to Casper's and Lynn. She says, here you go. Here's your passes. You can go in and just ask for them. They're free. This weekend, Cardinals mercifully wrap up their season. You know, it's one thing, and I get it, when you're a Royals fan, you get lose, although the Royals have won a World Series more recently than the Cardinals have, but when you're a Royals fan, and no disrespect towards Royals fans.
There's disrespect coming.
There's a big old butt in there.
I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't mean to insult you, but okay, let's say you're a fan of somebody, a baseball team, any baseball team that typically you get used to them not winning. And you get used to it every year, and it's no big deal. But when you're a Cardinals fan and you have a pretty long storied history of winning, it hurts a little bit when the Cardinals have a season like they do. But Adam Wainwright, Waino weekend. One of the things they did Saturday night, he got to bat. I think Friday he went in as a designated or a pinch hitter. He got to take an at-bat. Anybody remember what he did in his very first major league at-bat?
No.
Homered back in the days as a pitcher. It's kind of a big deal. And he was pretty good with the bat at the plate, by the way. But Saturday night after the game, he put on a concert. And I've heard some of his stuff. I would like to play some of the music here for you, but the only thing I could find was like cell phone video of him playing his concert. But he did a few songs, pretty cool, but his message prior to the concert reminded me why it's so cool to be a Cardinals fan.
I appreciate y'all staying. It means the world to me. People all the way up in the upper deck, people down here in the lower bowl, man, I love y'all so much. I'm so proud to be a St. Louis Cardinal for this long.
And that's the other thing that reminds me, it's not just about the Cardinals winning ways, but you love going to a ball game, love going to an opening day ball game. It's always fun to go and sit at the ballpark if you can afford it and watch the Cardinals play. But the Cardinals really do, I think, have the best fans in the world, and that's something that's really cool to be a part of. You think about whenever you have players that have been respected throughout the years, and they go and play for another team, and they come back and they come up to bat, and what do we do when those players come up to bat, even though they're on an opposing team? We applaud them. Even when the Cardinals don't do well, they have incredible attendance. It's just something really cool to be a part of, even when the Cardinals aren't doing well. It's just fun to be a Cardinals fan, and I think it speaks a lot about how classy we are here in the Midwest.
We can be.
Humble brag.
Right.
No, it's been a tough year for sure.
Yeah, it has. And so now Adam Wainwright, obviously Pujols and Yedier, Molina, all those folks gone. I think one of the things Adam Wainwright will be remembered for, besides his 200 wins and his prowess at the plate for a pitcher, was the Beltran curve that put the Cardinals in the World Series back in 2006. Bottom of the ninth inning, NLCS, and he caught Beltran flat-footed in a pitch that I guess for 2006 kind of went viral. One of the other things we're doing this morning, polling for what it's worth. I want to share this with you really quick. We keep talking about the polls are consistently starting to show gains for Trump in a head-to-head matchup. Now we're a year out polling. For what it's worth, there are two different polls this morning that show Trump beating Biden. One is the Messenger Harris X poll. Another one is a New York Post poll that shows in both of those Trump is beating Biden by 3 points. So they're consistently showing Trump can back me up on this. Whatever.
Yeah.
Another good one's, and I got this from my grandpa. Okay. When you're dealing with somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about.
Something I've started to call you out on is when you go, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I always say, you don't care, do you?
Hey, look at my pictures from the weekend. Look at me with a Oh, that's cool. That's your president over the weekend, Scott Fawn, Missouri Times. I want to talk about one of the biggest things that's happened as it relates to Missouri from over the weekend. Scott Fawn, I want to ask you, and here's the thing, we're not out this dude, he's old and he's not in good health, and shame on the folks that are in his circle not taking care of him. Scott, you hear that. What's your reaction?
Well, Joe Biden obviously is a little diminished. That Matt Gaetz is a weird dude, man. I mean, I swear, I think I'd be on Joe Biden's side. If I just met the two of them as asking directions, I think I would take Joe Biden's kind of senile directions to some, insure sale at the grocery store, where I would take Matt Gaetz as like weirdo sex trafficking directions. I mean, what a weird guy. Who would be for that dude? I'll bet you Mark Alford. I hope you ask Alford. Do you ever just want to deck that guy? Because he's got a punchable face.
Did you hear on Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning? Stephanie Bell asked a sitting congressman, do you want to deck Matt Gaetz?
These are the questions people want to know. I mean, I want to. Also, I think you should ask Lincoln Huff if he's surprised that Eric Burleson is a Matt Gaetz Republican. I would love to watch Lincoln answer that question. Like, if you could FaceTime him, that'd be excellent.
Well, we know from a viral tweet that Luetkemeyer isn't a fan of Matt Gaetz.
I love that. That was one of my favorite segments you guys have done. It was so great. Because, the details of this, be an adult, pay your bills. You have some basic things to get done. Then you can talk about abortion and guns and should a toddler have an Uzi or just an AK-47 or whatever weirdo stuff they do. But keep the government running, right? Get your job done. I mean, good Lord.
And I think that's
then when the Addams Family comes out, I'm like, gosh, Biden doesn't look that bad anymore if you're the Addams Family guys talking.
Well, and that's the thing we talk about, and they do this every year. Oh, my gosh, we're going to shut the government down. A lot of people don't care, and they push us close to the edge, and we saw when it came down on Saturday. I want to ask you this. Do you think a lot of Missouri – because here was our reaction. We get ready for pregame stuff with Mizzou on Saturdays. We start getting, and I'm hanging out with some folks that I would think would be politically inclined and pay attention to this stuff, but these news alerts start coming out on everybody's phone. It looks like the House has passed something that will stretch us out another 45 days so we can have this same conversation again in the middle of November. And then the Senate passed it, and everybody hears the reaction of all these people Saturday when this news starts coming out. Do you think the average, ordinary, everyday, working-class Missourian cared?
No, I don't think they cared at all. I do think that Jack Cardetti made a good point when you were nice enough to join me Sunday for This Week in Missouri Politics. He said until Social Security checks don't come out, then people will care real quick. When your grandma doesn't have money for food, then people will care. Now, I think we're a long way from that, but I mean, if it's up to that, I wouldn't want my grandma's Social Security check up to that weird guy with the eyebrows. I would actually trust Joe Biden more to just do the basic functions of blocking and tackling government. And good for the Speaker of the House for trying hard with his party, but just being like, look, you weirdos, we have to do basic stuff. And if you don't want to help, get out of the way. Good for him.
John says via text, what happened to Reagan's golden rule? Thou shalt not criticize other Republicans. John, I hear you, and thank you for being a part.
I'll tell you what happened, Twitter.
Well, and that's part of it. We talked earlier, and people have, even Nancy Pelosi says, Matt Gaetz more worried about TV appearances, and when I see Matt Gaetz goes on TV and he's wearing more makeup than Nancy Mace is when she's on the TV, I'm thinking maybe the priorities ain't in line. I will say this. I reached out to a friend of mine, Andrew McKay. He hosts a morning show on News Radio 92.3 in Pensacola, and that is in Matt Gaetz's district. And I asked, in that district, because nationwide it seems like people are like, okay, Matt, come on, man. It just, barstool knowledge of politics, it looks like it's all about him getting on TV. All of a sudden, he's really cozied up to CNN, and that had not happened before until he had stuff he wanted to get out against Republicans. But I asked this morning show host in Matt Gaetz's district, I said, do the people in Matt Gaetz's district, are they supportive of what he's doing without hesitation? He said, yep. Scott Fawn, Missouri Times, and this week hosts a TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. And I want to say this quickly, too. I was grateful for the answer I gave on your show because we did a little bit before we knew all the stuff coming out on Saturday. And one of the questions you asked in effect, is shutdown going to be a big deal? I'm like, no, it's going to work out. Is basically
Isn't it weird
what I said. I was kind of like, woo!
Every insane story starts off with a Florida man, a Florida man, a Florida man. And now here nationally now, the idiocy is a Florida man. I mean, I'm sure they do support it. They're the ones that like stick their hands in alligators' mouths for fun. I mean, these are weird people down there. The people that vacation there is one thing. But you into that panhandle, you're getting some weird folks that actually live there. And I guess now one of them's on TV.
And I live there, and
I think before you said that, you were supposed to say, what'd you say before the Royals? No offense. I don't want to offend anybody, but.
Yeah, I would thought that was awesome. I mean to offend the Royals. I'm not happy about it. I'm ticked. I'm very disappointed. I was texting with a friend of mine in St. Louis. There have been no riots over this last place finish. Now we're going to cancel next year's season. We're going to bring back this incompetent manager. I'm ticked. I'm not happy about Wayne. I'm not happy about anything right now. I don't want to be classy. I want to win. I don't want to be the Royals. The Royals are a terrible joke JV franchise. I don't want to be them. I'm angry. Like, I'm having to very carefully pick my words right now so the hillbilly doesn't rise out in me and I don't get you guys an FCC fine. Just talking about this whole situation with the Cardinals.
We appreciate that.
Fire everyone.
Bank of monitors.
Riot.
This morning we're watching Fox News. Top story on Fox News this morning, Stephanie.
Well, I know what the second story was.
Taylor Swift and her Kansas City. She's seriously,
Yes.
that's the second big story, top of the hour Fox News. And I'm wondering, we know that you have a 14-year-old by the name of Millie. She's a big fan of the show. She especially loves What's Hot with Hannah coming up at 7:25-ish. She is also a Chiefs fan. So what's her reaction to all the Taylor Swift Chief stuff?
Well, she's a big fan of What's Hot with Hannah. I would say she's a fan of the show. And I did a little poll. She is now a Chiefs fan. Yes, she always kind of was, but her Chiefs fandom has spiked in the last 2 weeks. And she had not heard the one before, but she's going with Stephanie's. What is it, Swifty Kingdom? She does not like trailer. That is not what she's down for. Swiftum? Okay. She's down for one of those variations if she gets to pick. But, yes, she is watching the football game for the 3-second cutouts to Taylor Swift's Skybox.
Aren't we all, Scott? Aren't we all?
I actually didn't watch a part of it. You know, until the Cardinals are done and I get over my 3-day binge whenever we don't win the World Series, then I start watching football. I just walk around with a rage of anger and disappointment about the Cardinals to the point where I really can't enjoy anything in life right now.
One of the things one of our former governors, Jay Nixon, has been pushing now is, I think it's called the Rock Island Trail, which in effect would be like another Katy Trail in Missouri. Some movement on that last week, people traveling around the state to try to push this thing. Can you bottom line that for us a little bit and what your take is on the idea of another Katy-like trail in Missouri?
I think you could debate this. I mean, there's folks on both sides of it. You get a property rights issue. Other than that, the Katy Trail has been a great success, and I think it's such a big deal. Jay Nixon, his history just views him better all the time. I mean, when you have like the worst governor ever follow you, it helps. But Jay Nixon has, whether you like Jay Nixon, you didn't, history has viewed him as a guy that took the job seriously, cared about the state. And the one issue he was gold on was conservation. If you enjoy Missouri state parks, you owe a hat tip to Governor Jay Nixon. And when he weighs in on this, it's a big deal. Also, if it comes down to lawsuits, it doesn't hurt to hire the lawyer to pick the judges, right? So I think this is I thought the Rock Island Trail was stalling out. I know the governor supports it. Had some trouble getting money for it the last couple of sessions. I think Jay Nixon weighing in is a big boost of momentum for that. And if it happens, it'll be another feather in the cap of the Babe Ruth of Missouri politics, the most popular guy to ever run for office, Jay Nixon.
What else is on your radar if we were to get on to the Missouri Times? A couple of big things you've got on there, Scott.
There's still some fallout from last week's hubbub about with the speaker and his staff. That's still kind of simmering out. I think, obviously, with the Independent writes something, it's meant to be salacious and anti-Republican. And I think at first people go, oh, bad for Republicans. And then I think you've got some House members that are like, wait a minute here. This was pretty staged. Now, hold on. You're telling me the Independent just happened to want these emails? I think you're now starting to see some folks start saying, okay, and it's supposed to be bad that we want to contact our constituents in a more effective manner. I think, Dean Plocker saying nothing at first looked not great, but I do think now the smell test, I'm starting to see people come out and say, I'd like to come on your show and talk about this. And they're not coming on to defend some hit piece in the Independent. I think him taking a breath on this is probably going to turn around and go well for him.
Missouri House Speaker Dean Plunkett. There was a story in the Missouri Independent that said that's alleging that he was kind of forceful in trying to push a certain company to handle something for constituent services. And also, speaking of the Missouri Independent, I did have to laugh a little bit. There was an article titled "Seizing the Clean Energy Opportunity," and the person who wrote the article, says, for years, electric companies across the nation cited cost concerns in their resistance to clean energy because of the cost, but that should no longer be the case thanks to new federal opportunities. That means federal money. It costs the same. It is no different. These people just don't understand.
Now, I enjoyed...
Well, they understand. They're paid to do a job, and they're doing it.
I enjoyed watching Branden on your show, and I also enjoyed your comment for Winner of the Week. You, I think, said the Missouri Supreme Court because right now the makeup is a majority female for the first time. But also, I really enjoyed your interview with the Chief Justice. For folks who that's not part of your regular This Week in Missouri Politics, it's part of a different program you put on. So for people who, and I think it's really important, the U.S. Supreme Court opens today, but they've kicked so many issues back to the states that our state Supreme Courts are becoming ever more important. So for folks wanting to learn more about our court and more about our current Chief Justice, where can they go?
Go to MissouriTimes.com or go to ShowMeMissouri.com. I usually do the history of Missouri, of a different county every week. This week I sit down with the Chief Justice of Missouri. She's wonderful. You ever just meet someone that's like, that is too intelligent and classy for you to really talk to? Well, that's most people with me, but that's her maybe more than anyone else. Chief Justice Mary Russell is absolutely a delight. She's so smart. She's so poised. I was honored that she made the time. Part one's up kind of about her career and how she got into this. It was so funny. I guess to me, I don't take it as a big deal that there wouldn't. I mean, I can't imagine a world where there's no woman on a Supreme Court. It's just kind of understood. But when she was coming up to the ranks, I mean, it was. I would ask her questions. And people would say, "Oh, you're here to interview to be the secretary, right?" I mean, just comments like that you wouldn't make today, but were so prevalent back then. She had to deal with, and the class she dealt with those things with. And she's really a Missouri treasure. And we're going to talk next week on Thursday. We'll debut part 2. We kind of talk about the court plan, some of the changes she's seeing, some of the things she wants to see in the judiciary. I was really honored she made the time. It's not something she does very often, and I learned so much about her, and it was like going back in time and realizing things my daughter will take for granted is because of people like Chief Justice Mary Russell and the sacrifices she made.
Scott Vaughn hosts the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. Check out his Missouri political-based publication, MissouriTimes.com. Scott, always good hanging out with you, bud.
Yep, I'll see you guys. I'm just living here in Swifty Kingdom.
We'll see you. Coming up 7:25-ish, we're going to do What's Hot with Hannah.
We're talking cars because I know so much about that.
We'll do that next. 25-ish, which means it's
7:26.
time for What's Hot with Hannah.
Man, are you just going to continue to blame that on Scott Faughn?
No, but I can. I can say, well, when somebody asks, if we're supposed to be at a certain time, but somebody asks a question with only a minute left to go in our visit with Scott Faughn, I can lay blame there, but I won't do that.
Well, that's good because we got lots to talk about this morning.
Okay.
Brandon, I know you're a really big car guy, just like Stephanie and I are, right?
Right.
Like, I am currently between cars, if you could put it that way. I'm in the market for a used vehicle, and today is National Name Your Car Day, and I feel like people get really intense about naming their vehicles, and it's something I've never really understood, but I asked the Wake Up fam, hey, have you ever named your car? We've gotten some good ones. I can't read very many of them on air, but there's some good ones. We've got Stitch. Alan said they named one of their cars Stitch. A 1987 Ford F-150 called the Beast that's still running. And then there's Angela, who said Hunk-a-Junk is what they've called their car.
I would be interested to know why somebody named their car Stitch, like if there's a story or a reason it is called Stitch.
I've never named my full-time driving car, but I always name my rental cars. Is that weird?
Yeah.
That is odd.
When we went out to Vegas and I got lucky, I got a BMW, and we called her Betty the BMW. And then this year I was in California. Of course, we pulled a Subaru, and we called her Susie the Subaru. She was great, actually. I was impressed.
My brother used to have a gold Chevy Impala that he called Beige Betty.
I like that.
But no, I've never named a car. I guess I've never really gotten into it. I think it's funny when other people name their cars. But isn't there also a superstition about you have to name a car after a woman?
Why is that?
It's like bad luck or something if you name it a dude's name.
Yeah, nobody names their car. You name your car? Yep. What do you call it? Rick.
Steve.
Yeah. The only time I call my car names is like when it won't start or something. Then it all of a sudden the car deserves a name.
Also names we can't repeat this morning.
Yeah. So if you want to share your car's name with us, there's a post up on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page, and you can also laugh at some of the ones that I can't read on air.
So, yeah, you want to see the ones that we can cover here in What's Hot with Hannah, which we do every morning, 7:25, just something kind of fun and different as you head into work. You can go to the Facebook page. The other thing you can do on the Facebook page is you can watch the show.
a motion to vacate. The only way a motion to vacate could be successful is if Matt Gaetz did exactly what he yells at Speaker McCarthy doing, and that's working with the Democrats.
It's Congressman from Southeast Missouri, chairs the Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith, a regular guest here on the show. We want to bring in Congressman Mark Alford here on To Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert. Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah Brian Hausworth is here. John Marsh is back tomorrow. Congressman Alford, do you agree with the statements from Congressman Jason Smith? This idea to try to oust Speaker McCarthy is a waste of time?
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me on. Yes, I agree with Jason wholeheartedly. Look, we have 47 days to pass the remaining 8 appropriation bills. With the 4 that we've passed passed about 70% of the discretionary funding. The Senate has done bupkis, nothing. And so it is up to the U.S. House of Representatives to get our job to make sure that within 47 days we get the rest of these passed and we get moving on with the business of doing business in America for the American people. And to have this type of shenanigans to keep coming up because of this personal vendetta, whatever it is that Matt Gaetz has against Kevin McCarthy, it is a disservice to America and a disservice to our body, and it needs to end.
All right, Congressman Mark Alford joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Take us behind the scenes of what was unfolding in Washington, D.C. over the weekend as, again, we the American people push to the edge of the cliff. Government shutdown happens every year, and more often than not, we come out of it frustrated because it happens, it seems, every year. What was happening behind the scenes, Mr. Alford?
Well, none of us were going home. Our staff was here. I didn't go home. I was committed to stay here and work in the office and answer phones and talk to constituents. It was like the last minute. Kevin had a plan that we voted on originally for a short-term temporary funding bill that would have included 8% overall cut, 30% cut in some discretionary spending for 45 days. It would have included securing the border with portions of H.R. 2 that we've already passed, and it would have included paying our military, our folks out at Whiteman Air Force Base in Fort Leonard Wood. But some people in our conference decided that wasn't good enough, and they voted against it. And so waiting on the Senate was not an option. The Senate, this was so crazy because we knew that the Senate was putting together their own clean continuing resolution that would included $6 billion aid for Ukraine, which we're not in favor of, and a lot of people are not at this point, additional spending. And so it was a race against the clock, and that's why you saw the shenanigans that went on from the Democrats to try to hold up this vote on the House floor so that the Senate could get their bill over, so we would be forced to vote on that. Thank goodness that Kevin McCarthy had the strategy that he did the last minute. We met in conference on Saturday morning, and we agreed that this was the best thing that we could do right now to pass this bill that had aid for Maui, disaster aid for Florida and Hawaii, and get this thing going. And let's get on with getting these appropriation bills done.
Congressman Alford, I want to ask you this. You're a freshman lawmaker. A lot of pressure surrounding this stuff because you got different flanks in the Republican Party. You're a freshman. Do you get the sense that you've got more of these Republican lawmakers coming to bet, no, Mark, you need to go this way, you need to go that way? I know it happens anyway. Are freshman lawmakers such as yourself more susceptible to those types of behaviors?
No one, when someone's trying to get you to vote a certain way, or it's called whipping a vote, okay? And our whip is Tom Emmer. The guy just under him, deputy whip, is Guy Rauschenschlager. They ask how we're going to vote if we're leaning a certain way, but I have never, in the 8 months that I've been here, and I've taken a lot of tough votes already, no one's ever told me how to vote. Kevin has told me, Tom Emmert's told me, Guy Rauschenschlager's told me, vote your conscience and vote your district. That's why I voted against the budget deal that Kevin came back with after negotiating with the president. I was for the limit, save, grow, bump up the deficit by 1.47. I was not for the 4.5, and he respected that. So it's a little bit – it's not like it used to be. Pelosi used to hit people over the head with a frying pan, would pull out things at the last minute. You wouldn't even be able to read what you were voting on. Kevin made sure that when he got into the speaker's position, we had 72 hours to read everything. So there's no more excuses of being voting out of fear or ignorance. And I'm not voting that way. And I think the Republican conference feels the same way.
Congressman, we appreciate you joining us live. Totally different subject, but something very important. You had a hearing as part of your congressional hearing with Chairman Thompson at the Missouri State Fair, and I just talked to the governor last week and also talked to the Weather Service yesterday. Columbia, just in September, 0.53 inches of rain, and I confirmed it is the 7th driest September on record. The governor will be attending Wednesday's Drought Assessment Committee meeting in Jefferson City, and he's very concerned about agriculture all over the state. What are you hearing from your farmers right now? September was a bad month weather-wise in terms of no rain.
It really was, and I think Boone County and some of the counties surrounding and touching Boone County are having a tough time now. Earlier in this year, it was further to the south. It was Dade, it was Polk, it was some of the other counties, St. Clair, Cedar counties, and they were in Dallas County. And this has been the second year for a D4, one of the most the worst drought that you can have. There's been a lot of forage and hay that's been basically burned off these fields. These ranchers are having to bring in hay from Georgia and from other parts that haven't experienced the drought, and they're paying $150 a round bale. That is, they're having to sell off their herds. And so this is unsustainable. And I've talked with the governor about this. The concern is this year for sure. The concern even greater is for next year. If we get another drought situation in the heart of Missouri, in the heart of America, it is going to be devastating for our producers. And I think for beef prices and for being able to feed our nation. And so we have worked with the state on some of the programs that we can come up with. We have one here moving right now, trying to get better access to money through programs so that these farmers and ranchers can reseed, so that they can redevelop their stock tanks or the farm ponds, so the cattle will have something to drink out of. But this is a very serious thing, and we are working with the governor on this.
Gotcha. Thank you, Congressman.
What's up with Representative Bowman pulling the fire alarm? Have you ever been unable to get to the chamber or thought about taking drastic measures? I mean, we keep hearing different stories coming from his people. So what really happened?
Let me tell you the truth of this, because we got over here Saturday morning. We went to our conference. I came back to our office. We were waiting on this vote to happen. We knew it was going to happen about, 12:30 or 1 o'clock. So everyone's in their offices. But on the weekends, the Capitol Police, there's still some presence here, but not like you have on the weekdays on a regular workday, all right? So there are like 4 exits at the bottom of each building where anyone can come in and out of, go through metal detectors or whatever. Members don't have to do that. But when we heard the buzzer ring that it was time to go vote, you get 15 minutes to get over to the chamber to do that. I went down myself, and I could not get out the door that I normally get out. I went to another door. I could not get out the door. Well, I didn't pull the freaking fire alarm because I couldn't get out the door. I went down one more level, went through the tunnel system, over to the chamber, and it's actually quicker going underground to get over there. This knucklehead could have done the exact same thing. He is a former principal who I'm sure in his career has had kids pull the fire alarm at his school. He knows better. It clearly said fire alarm over there. I believe this was an intent on his part to delay this vote like the other Democrats were trying to do, to cause chaos so that the Senate would have more time to get their bill over to us that has $6 billion in aid for Ukraine. They were scared to death they were going to lose on this, and they did.
Also, I noticed that's a helpful point, because he did say that he couldn't get out the door. So at least you're telling us that much is true. But you're telling us some of us are problem solvers and can use the stairs and get there without resorting to committing a felony, which I think is helpful to know.
Everyone knows it's actually quicker to use the tunnel system. He could have turned around, gone down one flight of stairs, and been in the tunnel system.
Now, looking over at the Senate, I know you all talk a lot, and I'm hoping maybe you have some insight here. I know it was reported that Senator Schmidt voted against the CR, and I think it was a small group. I think only 8 Republicans voted against it. Any insights there? Have you talked to him about the shutdown?
No, I haven't. I know that they were worried, as we were, that the Senate was going to come up with their own package with the $6 billion in aid. I know Josh Hawley was against that. I'm just glad that they were able to get something done and pass what we passed at the last moment. The president signed at the last moment. But I'll tell you what I'm sick of. I am sick of Washington operating this way, and I'm not Don Quixote, and I don't think I'm going to come here as a freshman and change anything right now. But I am letting everyone know, and I'm asking questions. We knew September 30th was coming. Why did we wait to the very last minute to get something done? That's what infuriates me, and it's just going to happen again. And I think that's where Matt Gaetz, Byron Donalds, folks from the Freedom Caucus have a point to make, that we need to do something differently in Washington, that we've got to change the way we work. I just don't think holding America hostage and pointing a gun at the heads of the American people over a shutdown of our government and not paying our military is the way to go about it.
Now, you said
they differ with me. Go ahead.
Well, you said you're not Don Quixote, and I'm wondering, I don't expect you to have a crystal ball, but what can we expect this week with this, alleged vote that's going to happen to remove McCarthy?
Oh, I don't know.
You bummed him out,
That's
Steph.
the best response ever. I think a lot of us have woke up sighing as well.
All right, Congressman, final question here. What's hot with Hannah? We do it every morning, 7:25-ish. It's kind of a fun story. She's asking on our Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page about car nicknames. Have you ever nicknamed one of your cars? Any of your cars ever had a name to it?
Yeah, right now, my Expedition, it's a red Expedition. This is the one that I got to campaign in 2 years ago, and I brought him up. It is a him. I brought him up with me to Washington, D.C. With Leslie. We drove up here last week, and I named him Big Red. So everyone knows when I'm talking about Big Red, what I'm talking about.
Congressman Mark Alford, 30 seconds. Can you leave us with something positive, some hope for folks here in Mid-Missouri listening this morning?
During conference, after conference, and the meetings have gotten pretty heated, as you might imagine. There's a prayer caucus that sticks around afterwards. And last conference that we had on Saturday, there were about 20 members that stuck around and prayed with Kevin McCarthy, and it was pretty intense. We know that, look, God is in control. I have very little power as a freshman member of Congress, but I do have the influence of prayer, asking for God Almighty to intercede. I think he did. I think that we have a long way to go, but in the end, it's going to be God's plan and not mine.
Congressman Mark Alford, thanks for joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Thank you. Y'all take care.
All right, we'll see you soon. Coming up a few minutes from now, we're going to be doing, and that would be all except for this dude. He's going to a Phillies baseball game. He's got his emotional support animal, and they wouldn't let him in. How come?
I saw one of the Shark Tank people are like, we're headed for a recession. And the Wall Street Journal says people are spending like crazy. Missouri is out here, thanks to listener Sean, we're finding out, setting records.
That's at 8:25 this morning.
And that would be all, except for this.
John Marsh back on the show tomorrow. So, you know, these folks have their emotional support animals. And this dude's going to a Philadelphia Phillies baseball game. And he's moseying in. He's got his emotional support pet. And his pet's name is Wally, by the way. By the way, more what people are naming their cars. We're going to get into that 8:35. It's What Was Hot with Hannah. We got some great names. But the guy's emotional support animal is named Wally. And apparently Wally's even been in the Disney Plus series Loki. Or maybe it's Loki. I should have probably consulted with producer Hannah first. It strikes me as something.
Why me?
Because I figure it's something you watch. It's Disney Plus.
I actually just canceled my subscription.
So he's going to the ball game, and folks start to gather around, and him and his emotional support animal, and they said, you can't bring that in here. And he's like, well, you know, it's the law. And they said, well, no, really, it's not a service animal.
That drives me nuts when people confuse the two.
Service and emotional support.
Yeah.
That's right. And I agree with you on that. But they said, but dude, it's an alligator. Your emotional support animal is an alligator. You can't come in here with that thing.
There should be some, I'm not like a big government girl, but there should be some rules around this. I'm sorry. Having been in the last 6 months, been displaced twice by enormous dogs. The last one I don't think qualified as a dog. I think it was a pony.
On an airplane?
On an airplane. I think it was a Mastiff or something. I mean, it was every bit of 150 pounds, up to my chest.
He was pulling a semi-trailer full of...
I could have ridden the dog. I mean, it was a pony.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, the dog needs your seats because, we got to accept the dog. Like, what?
And it was an emotional support animal?
I mean, they're not, and they're also not, there's no signs or things on them anymore. You're not required to identify it. So I don't exactly know. I just know that I paid for the seats that the dog ended up sitting in.
So they did not allow Wally, the emotional support alligator, into the game.
What's the difference between a giant pit bull, which is the other dog, and an alligator? I mean, if a pit bull qualifies, maybe the alligator was actually friendly. I think alligators are probably friendly than pit bulls, honestly.
Well, his name was Wally, and he says, well, Wally's never bitten anybody. And I love this because never bitten anybody until he does. I think, by the way, wild animals is one thing, but especially when you're dealing with reptiles, and I know this from having worked with reptiles for a lot of years, they have...
You've handled a lot of snakes over the years.
Yeah, I used to be, when I was a kid, I had boas and pythons, and buy and sell and trade and all that stuff. They're dumb. They know how to eat and sleep and mate. It's the 4 Fs: food, fight, flee, and mating.
Bleep.
And mating. Those are the 4 Fs. And reptiles, that's about it for them. They just have no brain.
Just wanted to watch the game.
And that would be all, except for this. Coming up just a few minutes from now, some insight into D.C. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer. He is going to be
move McCarthy?
Oh, I don't know.
You bummed him out,
That's
Steph.
the best response ever. I think a lot of us have woke up sighing.
All right, that was a question for Congressman Mark Alford earlier this morning. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer now joining us on the show. Want to take us behind the scenes? What happened in D.C. over the weekend? Do you? Mr. Alford did not make a statement there, but we got what he is saying. Do you agree with him, Congressman Luetkemeyer?
Yeah, I think in my conversations with some of the Freedom Caucus guys, Gates seems pretty intent on dropping his motion to vacate the chair. Just to kind of scare everybody, last week he left a copy of it on the bathroom floor in the men's room, just to show everybody he was serious about it. So he's just been sending these shots over the bow for several weeks now, just trying to intimidate and bully his way around. That's what he does. But it's put up or shut up time for him. Nobody takes him seriously anymore because he's just a wild card who just has a vendetta against the speaker. Not sure why. Most people believe it's because he's got ethics violations that are against him. He's in front of the ethics committee right now with those violations and concerns. And he's asked Kevin to help him, and Kevin said, "I can't help you, Matt. That's against the law." And so, but that's the way that Matt's operates. Is if it doesn't make any difference whether it's against the law or not, he wants somebody to intervene for him. And so, that's supposedly what it's all about. I don't know. But the bottom line is, it's a very, very serious distraction at a time that we don't need this. It disrupts and distracts and divides our our conference, so that we have to deal with that instead of deal with the issues at hand. I would anticipate he would drop it sometime this week. He doesn't have the votes to do it. He knows it. That's why he's prolonged this a little bit. If I were the Democrats, I'd vote present and let him wallow in his mess and show that the Republicans are solid behind Kevin. If they vote present, they don't vote for the speaker, but they don't vote against him either. So they can't oust him. They have nobody to take his place. And then Gates winds up having ousted the speaker and put a Democrat in charge. And what does that tell you about him? He's accusing the same thing and going after Kevin for the same thing that he's going to have to do here in order to win his vote against the speaker. And that's working with the Democrats. He pushed him into this situation. They killed every single bill that we worked on all the way through this process of the last 3 or 4 weeks here now. And I've sat through those meetings hour after hour and watched these guys harass and harangue the rest of us. And we want this, we want that. And we find a way to restructure a bill to make sure it'll work, to get them what they want. Go to the floor with the bill, boom, they vote against it every single time. And finally, we got to the point and said, well, are there any of you that would even vote for a CR if we could put something together? Six said no, they wouldn't vote for one at any cost. They want to shut the government down. This is what their intention is and was. And I can tell you that from the standpoint that I was talking to someone who has intimate knowledge of the Freedom Caucus. Now, Gates is not a member of the Freedom Caucus, by the way. But the rest of them, their intention was to shut the government down for about 10 days. And during this time, what it does, it raises their profile. At the end of the quarter here, that means something to somebody in our position, because at the end of the quarter, you have to file a financial report that tells your opponents, anybody who may want to run against you, how much money you got, how much you've raised, what kind of campaign you can run. These guys can't raise any money from the locals back home and anybody in D.C., so they have to go online. The only way they can go online is to raise their national profile, and that means you got to get on TV. So these guys are doing this for their own self-interest, to raise their profile, to go raise money. This is not about being conservative. This is not about the country. This is not about these issues. I've sat there and watched them time after time after time get what they wanted, then they move the goalposts again. This is the most self-serving group of people you could ever imagine, and they call themselves Republicans when they're really libertarians who don't want to govern. That's the bottom line.
Here's my thing with Gates. I appreciate he strongly believes in what he strongly believes. I don't agree with a lot of it, and definitely do not agree with the way that he goes about doing it. He has already been cozying up with Democrats. All of a sudden, his new best friend is CNN. All of a sudden, he's making all of these appearances on CNN. Something he had not done before. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer is joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. By the way, John Marsh is going to be back here on the show tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Brandon. And we appreciate the congressman being on there. We'll stay on top of that because obviously that's going to be a very interesting vote, and we'll see what happens if the vote does indeed happen. Congressman, you're going to be in Columbia in a couple of hours. Huge. There's an effort to cure cancer on the Mizzou campus. They're going to do a $20 million expansion of the current research reactor. You'll be there speaking along with the governor. Can you give us a sneak peek into what you intend to say when you go to the podium there today?
Well, thank you for the plug for the reactor replacement there. I will not be there today. I'm heading back as a result of this nonsense, and I got to head back to D.C. today. So I won't be there, but I have recorded a message for the folks there. And basically, we're excited about the opportunity to be a participant in this replacement of the existing reactor with a new reactor about twice the size from standpoint of power. And we understand, and I've been a big proponent of this for a long, long time, from the standpoint that it does fantastic research with regards to a lot of different areas, but specifically for cancer. 90 to 95% of the radiated drugs that are used in cancer, not just in the United States or Missouri here, but around the world, are produced at that facility. And so it has to be replaced, and we are the place that it needs to be done. So I'm excited to be a part of that operation. I know that President Choi, in talking with him, believes he's got the balance of the funding pretty well set up so that he can get ready to go. There's a really, really big thing that was in the debt limit bill that said permitting on projects can no longer take more than 1 year on small projects, no longer than 2 years on big projects. So that means we've probably cut about 5 years of permitting time wasted on getting this reactor permitted, so that we can get it done and in place more quickly. So I think we're working as hard and as fast as we can to do everything possible to make this project come to fruition, because it is a huge thing, not just for the university, but for the country and for the world to have this reactor in place to be able to produce these cancer-saving drugs and do the research to help along those lines as well.
All right, Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer is joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
I think in your words, you called it nonsense. I think a lot of folks are hoping we can get past this nonsense and get on to the real issues. One issue that I think is weighing heavily on a lot of people is the border. Is there, with all of this other stuff going on, what can we do about the border?
Well, it's something that comes up in our conference meetings all the time, and we recognize this. We're pounding on the administration. We don't have a border anymore along the south. And they're pouring in over 230,000 last month. I sit on the China Select Committee and the Fentanyl Task Force, and I can tell you that the border is a huge problem from the standpoint of China giving all the precursors to the drugs, the ingredients that you make the drugs with, the cartels in Mexico making the fentanyl in and getting into this country. In June alone, the Border Patrol seized enough fentanyl to kill everybody in the United States. Every single person, they got that much. In the first 4 months of this year, they seized as much as they did the entire year last year. The border is becoming overrun, and we've got to stop this. And this administration is hell-bent on keeping open borders so they can have complete disruption of our society, our culture. It's a shame of this going on. Even the New York governor today came out and said, hey, we've got to do something about this border. We can't keep accepting all these illegal immigrants. So we're trying to do something. We've got some plans, some programs to try and do that, but we just can't get them put together, and among ourselves, we can't get these bills worked out. So it's very frustrating.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul, she's been on that for a while. Hey, we got to do something. And I agree 100% with the mayor of New York City, the mayor, Eric Adams, who has said, he said, Uncle, please, Joe, my goodness, do something. And here's the other thing that he said that I completely agree with, because the progressives, they do a good job with their messaging, and people who don't know any better, they just buy into it. They eat it, man. They're, oh, yeah, I believe everything CNN, MSNBC tells me. Mayor Eric Adams of New York City said, we have unlimited compassion. We do not have unlimited resources. And I love that he said that, because people think, well, you're just against ground people and all. No, we had a woman on from Mexico, Missouri, a mother, a couple of weeks ago whose son died of a fentanyl overdose. We know the numbers of people that die here in mid-Missouri from these fentanyl overdoses. We know the strains on these cities all across America. When you have mayors of sanctuary cities saying, Oh, for the love of God, please do something. When you have residents in Chicago who showing up to city council meetings saying, why are you giving all of this money and all of these resources to people that are not even citizens of the country, and yet we have us here in Chicago, and you're not doing anything to help us. It's remarkably stunning that these folks just I don't understand what the deal is. Anything else? Final 60 seconds here, Congressman. Anything else that you would like to add this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri?
Well, I think there's just one more point that we talk about here with this budget appropriation situation, and that is the downgrading of our securities by one of the ratings firms a couple months or this summer sometime. When that happens, what it means, there's more risk to our securities, which means interest rates that we have to pay on the securities goes up. Whenever you have $33 trillion worth of debt and your interest rate goes up 1%, that's $330 billion in additional interest that you'll pay in a year. This is what the markets are waiting for us to do, is fix this problem. And if we don't fix it, I think by first quarter of next year, you'll see the other two rating agencies downgrade us as well. But they're looking for three things, if I could do it real quickly here. Bend the spending curve. Don't endanger our majority so we continue to be in the majority so we can continue to bend the spending curve. And then we need to have a plan for mandatory spending, which is 70-some% of our budget. If we don't fix those three things, we will see, I predict, that we will have a downgrade of securities the first quarter, and then you'll see a real hole in our budget. And all the fiddling around that we're doing right now and arguing over semantics here and a few dollars there is going to be irrelevant when you look at us having to pay billions and billions and billions more in interest on our debt.
Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer.
We'll leave on that bright, shining note.
All right, we'll see you. We appreciate your time here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Coming up, 8:25, we're going to be doing the Morning Bell Business News with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Americans are still spending like there's no tomorrow, and a big record set in Missouri, a nationwide record last week.
that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting today that Americans are still spending like crazy. So you might have your eye on the stock market this morning, and the Wall Street Journal is doing me dirty and being a little bit slow this morning. But the futures have been kind of bouncing around. Currently, they are all three in the red. Down, at least the S&P is down nearly 0.25%. So they are reporting Americans are still spending like there's no tomorrow, and we're spending on ridiculous things, apparently. We're spending it on concerts, trips, and designer handbags.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
That's specifically directed to you, Brandon. You're buying a lot of designer handbags, right?
Well, no. He did have an announcement this morning.
He did. He said the word girlfriend. Anyway, the data bears this out, though. So the journal is saying Americans spent 5.8% more in August this year than last year. And the Delta Airlines said they had record revenue in their second quarter. Ticketmaster, now this is the Taylor Swift effect, but we'll just go with it. Ticketmaster selling over 295 million event tickets in the first 6 months of 2023. That's up 18% year over year. So people are still big spending, but they're saying they haven't fixed their spending habits. They're just not saving anything. That's where the cuts are coming in.
And that's where you will see it, I would think, down the road. Now, I'm not a finance, who's really good with this stuff. Randy Tobler, who hosts the Randy Tobler Show, weekdays from 4 to 6 are on the radio station. His understanding of the economy is pretty good. But I wonder, so does that start to poke holes when you say, well, the recession and Joe? But look, man, people are buying concert tickets and plane tickets.
Well, and if you've been to a concert, I think Beyonce was in Kansas City last night. Of course, Taylor Swift's on tour. But if you've been to a concert or an airport lately, or even like a nice shopping mall, there are people, they're packed, right? The airports are packed. So we know this, but now the data is really showing that. Also where people are spending their money. And right now, everyone's saying it's not a really good time to buy real estate, right? And we're hearing that a little bit. One of the Shark Tank guys, Kevin O'Leary, was on saying, hey, commercial real estate stocks, like they're in bad shape right now, and you need to watch out. But apparently in Missouri, we're still doing really good. We smashed, according to AgWeb, smashed the previous record as to farmland. And so we're in Saline County, Missouri. The record was previously held by Iowa, where they sold some farmland for $30,000 an acre.
Which is crazy.
What's the normal price? I don't know. I'm sorry.
Some context, yeah.
30. Okay, Hannah's like, I don't know. $30,000 an acre, apparently.
An acre's not that big.
For farmland. Yeah, it is high. But they said last Thursday, it was actually an auction. It all happened in about, and maybe this is some context. It all happened in about 15 minutes. The starting price for the auction was $15,000 an acre. Two farmers got into it, and they bid that thing up in 15 minutes to more than double the starting price. The new record, $34,800 per acre. And they said, the article was quick to point out, look, they're not buying this for some commercial development or some big business thing. It is straight up just solid farmland. It's hard to come by. And the price is just outrageous right now. They said one of them was a neighboring farmer and one was a farmer from right outside the county, I think. And they both, and they pointed out like these weren't like family members who wanted to keep it. That would pay an insane price for no reason, right? So like maybe somebody wanting to keep it in the family. That was not the case. It was just, this is good farmland. Here's the going rate in the market value. And Missouri's smashing a big record.
So the University of Missouri reported in 2021 that in Missouri, the value of good, non-irrigated cropland was about $6,300 an acre.
Wow, so that's almost 5 times as much. By the way, those online auctions, our friends at Atterbury Auction and Realty Company, they do stuff like this, and it is incredible to watch. And this story you're telling how those kinds of things work.
And you talk about the money in ag. They bought 115 acres, so this is
know it. Americans need to know it. Trump cannot be president again in 2024, and we will do everything we can to bring and hold Trump accountable.
I'm going to get real personal here.
Oh, great.
Well, these people that have Trump derangement syndrome, and if you or somebody you know has Trump derangement syndrome, seriously, get some pen and paper. I've got a phone number here for you. Or you can go back and listen to the Wake Up Mid-Missouri On Demand podcast anytime, all the time, KWOS.com, 93.9theeagle.com. And you can hear 800-662-4357. That's toll-free 800 number, 662-4357, 662-HELP if you have Trump derangement syndrome. And forgive me for being so personal here, but doesn't it...
Trump cannot be president again in...
Just like a whiny...
But we got full white Bronco coverage. We had like the drone over the car this morning of him on his way to the civil fraud trial. We watched him get in the car, and now on Fox they've got a live feed. There's so many reporters there. We're waiting for him to walk down the hallway. I mean, is this really? I mean, this is beating out the Taylor Swift news, I guess, and the fire alarm news. But we are patiently awaiting Trump to arrive at court any minute, apparently.
And the story, one of the few stories on Fox that's bigger than Trump, in this civil fraud trial in Manhattan today. He's actually going to make a court appearance. I don't know if he's appearing as much as he's just going.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. The only one of the few stories bigger than that, so we know that there's a replacement for Senator Dianne Feinstein. Oh, and I might want to, if we have time, I want to revisit the moment that we applauded something she did several years ago here on the show. I do want to get to that. But one of the things bigger than this story is Taylor Swift's, I'm not kidding, Taylor Swift's Chiefs winning last night. Like, that's top of the hour Fox News. And I will say this, and I know, I don't want to hear about Taylor Swift. I could care less too. But I was at a shop that sells sports stuff, shirts.
Yay, sports.
Yeah, right. And I asked him, because locally, so we are getting nationwide attention here in the state of Missouri. Our Kansas City Chiefs are getting nationwide attention. You might think, well, they already have. They won a couple of Super Bowls. Not attention like this. Not like this. And I believe that's good for us. People are paying attention. We talked about the ratings. I cannot wait to see what the ratings were for last night. NBC opened up last night with kind of an explainer for all these, because they knew. I thought it was a brilliant move. They opened up with an explainer for Taylor Swift fans joining us. Here's the Chiefs. This is about Travis Kelce. I thought it was a brilliant move, because look at what happened with Fox last week. They had the number one show on television, not Fox News, but Fox, the football, the broadcast. And what was interesting, you look at those numbers, the numbers grew throughout the show, because on social media, oh, hey, Taylor's in Missouri. She's at the game. And the ratings just grew in the female numbers for a Sunday afternoon football game for a team that's not out of L.A. or New York that always gets big ratings because they're in the biggest media markets in America. Little old Kansas City, Missouri, getting a lot of buzz. Travis Kelce jersey sales, female numbers for advertisers. I'm in a sporting goods store the other day, and I'm asking, because I want to know locally what's doing locally. And so I'm at a local store, and I asked the guy, I'm like, hey, man, we're talking about the bump in Travis Kelce jersey sales and all of that. Are you guys seeing some benefit from Taylor Swift? And he said, well, you see the Travis Kelce jerseys on the wall? And I looked, I'm like, no. He said, that's right. They didn't have any.
That's incredible. And again, I think you bring up a very good point about how NBC opened the broadcast up, knowing that they were getting a brand new, basically a new audience. They have a good audience anyway on Sunday night, but you sometimes say on news stories, you want to, and this is not offensive to what you say. You say basically say, you'll talk to people like they're explain it to me like I'm 2 years old. And that's exactly what they kind of did last night. Basically, in a sense, it's a similar thing. People that aren't necessarily, they weren't tuning in to hear X's and O's, et cetera. But
give me the Kamala version.
It is what people are what people are talking about.
Ukraine is a small country, and Russia is a bigger country. That was an actual explainer when somebody asked Kamala about the geopolitical ramifications of Putin invading Ukraine. It was, well, see, Ukraine, it's a little country, and this is a bigger country, and they invaded.
There's some internet gold. I think I heard someone refer to Jason Kelsey because he's the center, and they're like, he's the bend and snap guy. And so the Swifties are having a really fun time explaining football to each other, but it's been fun.
The bend and snap guy.
I mean, is it wrong?
Oh, I actually have a football question on this topic. I consider myself to be fairly knowledgeable about the game of football. I don't typically have to ask my fiance sitting next to me very many questions when we're watching a game.
Brian, this is going to be a question for you.
I'll try.
We joined the Chiefs broadcast a little late last night. It was beginning of the second quarter or so, and I looked at the score, and New York had 2 points.
Yeah.
And I asked my fiance, I said, how do you get 2 points in football?
Brian, don't answer this question. This is a trap. She's trying to set you up. You know what she's going to do later? She's going to, well, Brian Hausworth was mansplaining.
No.
Well, I'm saying, yeah, it's a trap. Don't fall for
obviously,
it.
I know you can get a 2-point conversion after a touchdown, but they only had 2 points, and that really confused me.
And Brandon, with Hannah, you don't have to worry about it. On some legislative Twitter stuff, I've seen that too. I've seen that for sure. But I've seen that certainly said. But it was a safety. It was a safety, so you get 2 points for that. And then they had a field goal. At one point, it was 17-5. So that was a weird score, too. But they had 2, and then they had 5. But that's how they got a safety.
I thought safety was a position on the field.
It is.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm not totally out there.
Well, and the other thing with
it's a good question.
So
It really
typically
is.
a safety, like let's say the team's backed up, and now I'm going to mansplain it. Let's say a team's back up against their own goal line, and the quarterback gets sacked in their end zone. You get 2 points. But this was actually a different kind of safety because of a penalty called in the end zone.
It wasn't. I had to be honest, I was working on some of my news because we were really busy last night. But I had Mitch on the game, and I had a hard time. It was so loud there. I had a hard time hearing exactly what it was, but it was unusual, but I don't remember exactly the circumstances of it other than it was a safety. And then they had a field goal with Butker as well. But that's how they got that. It was 2 and then 3. The field goal came after that.
And does that happen very often, a safety in football? Because I was going to say, I don't think I had ever seen it before.
It's not, I wouldn't say it's not unprecedented, but I'm trying to think even the last time in a Mizzou game I've seen one. It's not very often.
That doesn't happen.
It can be a huge it can be a momentum builder for a team, and it can also make the difference. But no, it's not common.
Well, thank you for the explainer. I appreciate it.
Amen.
Hausworth, highlight of your weekend?
Had a good weekend, good birthday, quiet, and busy. I did. I know, gosh, I've been battling allergies. I think the highlight would be doing the end. I was on Alabama, finishing up Missouri, and between
Hausworth
the two
does a lot of college football on a national level, by the way. That's the talent level we're dealing with our now 52-year-old buddy, Brian Hausworth.
And I appreciate that. But at the end of that game, I was on with Mizzou, and then right at the beginning of Alabama, Ole Miss and LSU were going back and forth, and trying to describe that literally on the air. Finally, Ole Miss won. It was it delayed the Alabama game, so that was kind of the highlight, trying to get that together, and I was able to do it. LSU got beat by.
So as Stephanie is watching the OJ-like coverage of Trump arriving for a civil fraud trial in Manhattan, there are more poll numbers this morning, 2 different polls for what polling is worth. When this guy goes to court, whatever, his poll numbers come up. We heard about the Washington Post, ABC News poll that was the folks at Washington Post were had so much, they were so shocked. They're like, well, don't believe our polling. We know we did it, but don't believe it. It showed Trump with a huge lead over Biden. There are 2 new pieces of polling this morning that both show Trump up 3 points over Biden in a general. And here's why I start to, for as much stock as I can put in polls. I think Stephanie says it best. It's a couple thousand people on, the end of September, a year prior to the election. Here's what is consistent. He's in recent weeks, he has started to match Biden, and now we have 3 polls in a row that show Trump is beating Biden. So this person we opened up with the audio, Trump can't be president, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, look at your bank account.
It shows momentum.
Yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight here is, and I'm not making fun of the guy's lack of mental acuity. Somebody's got to get, but But when the president of the United States says things like this,
That democracy, literally our democracy, is at stake.
This is the guy, by the way, on July 4th, that decision came down. This is something that our Attorney General's office has been involved with, trying to impede First Amendment rights as it relates to social media. To me, freedom of speech, that's whatever cliche you want to put to it, the bedrock of democracy, the whole thing. We are founded on freedom of speech. When you have a president who did that, and that's what Joe did, tried to go to these social media companies and clamp down on what they were saying, that's a threat to democracy. President Trump is not. Producer Hannah and Stephanie Bell is here. You want these car nicknames? I want to do for leftovers. Stephanie has uncovered some amazing audio. And it's not of Travis Kelce.
It's of Travis Kelce's niece. It's my favorite.
Wyatt.
Of all the Taylor TikToks and everything else, this is the best Travis Kelce audio I've seen.
It's really good. Hannah put on the wake up. I didn't do anything.
Thank you. Finally.
I know. With the Facebook page this morning, car nicknames. And we've got some really interesting responses. What people are naming. Which one's got you giggling?
The one that's the dude name. Because you said
Yes.
no one's going to name their car after a guy. It's always like Betty or Bertha or anyway. This one is hilarious.
And it's coming up a few minutes now. We'll do that in leftovers. What do you name your car? You have a car with a dude name. Some of the things didn't get a chance to get to during the show. Some audio from Jason Kelce, who, of course, the brother of Travis Kelce. What a classic moment that was. Super Bowl last year at the end of the game. The mom and the kid who just lost the Super Bowl. And remember how she was like, oh, Jason, I'm sorry. And then, Travis, congratulations. You talk about 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds.
Rough.
That was it. Stephanie's uncovered some audio apparently after the game. Not too long after the game.
Yeah, Jason Kelce going home, greeting his family. So you hear his wife and then his daughter, which is Travis Kelce's niece.
Wyatt. She's adorable.
And you'll hear her saying, but you didn't win, Daddy. You didn't win.
We said we would be happy
You
for
can
tomorrow.
win.
What's that?
You can win.
I didn't?
No.
Oh, man.
Uncle Travis win.
Uncle Travis did win. Did you want that to happen, Wyatt?
I didn't want Uncle Travis to win.
It's all right.
Bye-bye.
Uncle Travis got it. Oh.
She announced that on
We can be happy for Uncle Travis.
Well,
It's so sweet.
It's beautiful. I love it.
So that clip is from the Kelce documentary that came out a couple weeks ago on Amazon Prime. And if you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend. You just kind of get a glimpse into the Kelce family, and they are so wholesome and genuine. It's hard not to like them.
Oh, Saturday Night Live. This past Saturday Night Live, of course, they're all repeats, but they happen to do the one of Travis Kelce when he hosted. My goodness, his opening monologue, that was some really good stuff. His thing about being a high school dropout who smokes weed and says, see, kids, it just shows you be a high school dropout who smokes weed, you too can win the Super Bowl twice. I mean, it's just comedy, but it was brilliant.
Well, and of course, the documentary follows Jason Kelce specifically. You see Travis a little bit, but it's more about Jason's story. And seeing what happens after you lose a Super Bowl was pretty interesting to me because I feel like the winners always get the focus. Yeah. And just kind of seeing, for him especially, the heartbreak that goes into losing, but also having to be happy for your brother at the same time. It was really interesting and just kind of showed how good of a dude Jason Kelce is.
And that was that audio for me. It's like, okay, you had to have that heartbreaking hug with your mom right after the game. You had to do post-game interviews about how you lost. Then you get home and you're hoping, like, my family's going to comfort me. And the first thing out of your kid's mouth is, you didn't win, Daddy. And you're like, gosh darn it.
These dang kids.
They're so honest. And that's one of the reasons we love them, but they also scare us sometimes. If you've ever been in a social setting with your kid and your kid has said something inappropriate they didn't know was... I got some stories, one specifically around the Thanksgiving table one year when Trevor was about 4 years old. And we're all standing up, got the in-laws and everybody in the new house. First time we're hosting Thanksgiving dinner and all this. And we're holding hands, and I can't even share it on the radio.
Well, I think we have to talk about Nathan's name for his car. I can't get past it.
Hannah, what's hot with Hannah? Do it every morning, 7:25. She posted on the Facebook page. What is it? Do you nickname your car, and what's the story to it? What was the one that made you giggle, Steph?
Nathan said he calls his car Kyle. What?
And then he said, it's gray, like my old cat, which is also named Kyle.
He said it's a Ford Fiesta. But can you imagine talking to Nathan? He's like, Kyle over there. And you're like, really,
And it could
dude?
be the cat or it could be the Ford Fiesta. And then I asked Nathan, I said, have you named your firstborn child Kyle? He said, no, I would never name an actual person Kyle. That's just silly.
Any others that you particularly enjoyed, Hannah, when it comes to nicknames for cars? Or the story behind why the car gets the nickname?
Lots of big red vehicles named Clifford. I've never heard that one before, but we've seen it several times this morning, and I think that's really cute.
I've never called my car any names except for when it doesn't start. And
Hunk of junk?
Yeah, that's one of them. It gets a lot of names. One of the other things in Leftovers before we get into the Gary Nolan show, it's my dad's favorite show here on the radio station. Barbara Buffalo, mayor of Columbia, she's forming some kind of like a task force or something, and there's a piece in the Missouri, and I applaud the efforts. Folks want to do stuff about violence, and I don't ever want to be a nattering nabomb of negativity.
Wow.
Right? And it's great. You want to do something, but I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding, and not just Barbara Buffalo, but that mindset. Well, we're going to get together, and we're going to form a task force, and we're going to do this, and it goes back to the root cause. And a lot of times, the root cause is familial, and it's because of social handouts. And until get past that, there's just not much you can do. But I'm hopeful. I really am. I would love to sit here a year from now and say, man, I got it really wrong when they talked about forming this thing to cut down on crime in certain neighborhoods, because they do mostly happen in certain neighborhoods, and that is a truth. That is a fact. It's not just a talk. It's true. I'd love to sit here a year from now and say, man, I was wrong. Look, they cut crime.
I don't know. I mean, in the past where there have been comments where the police feel unsupported, I don't think getting a task force together now is going to fix that. And I think, we should be supporting our police all along. And this isn't a new problem. And